I'm Jasmine Chasteen.
And we are the Environmental Education Specialists for the City of Rochester's Department of Recreation and Human Services. So Rochester, New York was selected to be a CCCN city back in 2018, where we identified 3 strategies for equitably connecting children to nature in Rochester. The first was to increase outside of school time programming at rec centers and city parks. The second was to adopt a Children's Outdoor Bill of Rights, which is what this presentation will focus on. And the third was to launch an urban nature center at historic Maplewood Park.
So why Rochester? Rochester is actually, it has the 7th highest poverty rate in the county, and it has the largest in the country poverty gap in Monroe County. So this initiative was brought on to address the academic, health, and economic outcomes and barriers that we experience in the city of Rochester, and this was a way to analyze that data.
So how we got started was we engaged 2 groups of youth. One was the Mayor's Youth Advisory Council, and then the other one were called the Urban Ecologists. So we grabbed, and they were high school aged youth. So we grabbed the advocacy group and an ecology group, and we got them together, and they were the ambassadors for this initiative. And the first thing we did was take them out on a nature retreat so that they could not only experience the benefits of nature themselves, but also build relationships among themselves so that they really solidified themselves as a cohort before we began this work. So once they had a good understanding of why we were trying to do what we were doing and what the objective was, they were sent out into the community to gather data. So they first talked to our community partners to ask them what should be on a survey for the community, and then they developed the survey and distributed it. We had intentions pre-COVID to have a lot of in-person conversations that were going to be led by the youth, but obviously we had to pivot. So we created a call to action video where they were able to talk about what nature meant to them, why it was important, and to encourage people to take the survey. So once we collected the data from the survey, and we had hundreds of responses across the city, they then presented the findings and the co-board to City Council, and then it was then adopted into City Legislature.
So with that data that the youth collected, we were able to master quantitative and qualitative metrics. So how we determined that is we collected a series of 100 surveys, and we determined that 64% reported that they actually felt safe playing in nature. And we were able to identify the main barriers. The number one barrier was I don't have enough time. So later in this slideshow, we determined, okay, this is something that we need to address, and how are we going to do that? We explored that, all these different barriers, but that was a major barrier for a lot of youth in our community.
So these were the 12 activities that our community said were the most important for children to experience while they're young. So once we had our co-board, we launched our Children's Outdoor Bill of Rights on Earth Week of 2021. We did this in combination with a news release where the city committed to the Urban Nature Center, as well as addressing the barriers that were identified by the Children's Outdoor Bill of Rights survey. In tandem, we had a press release that was held at the site of the Future Nature Center and uplifted the youth voices that were the ambassadors for this initiative. We then created a bunch of activation strategies, and that's where we're at now. We're in our activation phase of this, and so we have a bunch of different strategies, and we're going to talk about each one a little bit.
So our first one was our first annual Play in Nature event, which happened in 2021 on the site of the Maplewood Nature Center. This was an amazing event that raised awareness about all the different aspects of nature in our city. We invited youth and families to come join us, engage in different workshops and demonstrations, and our partners were able to offer registration, different scholarships, and opportunities to engage. We had amazing media press, and this was solidified the reason why we are doing this, because we had a great response from our community.
So the next thing we're doing is every month we're going to be focusing on a different right within the Children's Outdoor Bill of Rights. So not only are we going to be promoting what our partners are doing and different access points for these activities, but we're going to be doing a big event every month that allows people and children to actually engage in that specific right. So we are engaging as many partnerships as we can. I think one of the big themes of this work is relationship building, right? So we're really trying to increase the amount of collaboration that's happening with this work to create a citywide movement. We are also incentivizing all of our programming in as many ways as we really can. We are giving away all sorts of stuff intentionally to help children feel more safe and more comfortable in nature, as well as giving away Explore Your Parks books with those badges, and badges for each rite that they complete, as well as park passes, scholarships, camperships, and different ways that they can help access, and so we can address these barriers.
Another way is that we've devised a social media campaign plan, which will house all the information that we've been collecting from our partners and then the events that we're putting on. So everything will be housed and easily accessible for people that are interested in getting their kids out and want to find new events for their families to join in on. We also want to start creating TikTok content that will be housed on our city website. And then we also have COBOR posters throughout the rec centers, schools, libraries, and different office buildings. So it's seen all across our city. The primary way that we're embedding the COBOR is through our Earth Explorers program that we service about 80 kids per week through 5 Art Center sites. And this is a deep dive in a very buildable education system that allows the kids to understand climate justice, soil health, gardening, horticulture. So all of these are buildable, but their foundation is the COBOR and allowing the kids to understand what that is and that this is the culture of our city.
So not only are we trying to engage our partners in all of our events and things like that, promoting them, trying to be good partners, but we're also trying to leverage our partnerships by collaborating on funding opportunities and trying to direct resources so that we're actually creating more opportunities that weren't there before for kids to experience these activities. In the future, I know we've referenced the future Maplewood Nature Center quite a few times, but this will be the site where all of this work is held.
Yeah. And that work is breaking down these barriers. The barriers, I don't like bugs. So actively educating youth and families that bugs are great for our soil and then allowing them to identify it. Getting dirty was one of our major barriers. So understanding that these are things that we can get past, and if we have a place to house them and educate people, it's more accepted overall. So there are some measurements, quantitative and qualitative, obviously, but the number one way is to understand the retention rate. So we are being able to retain about 80 kids per week consistently. Their overall eagerness to just engage and try new things. This young lady here was going full throttle on this zucchini. And I don't know how many people can convince a 6-year-old that zucchini is healthy and good, but we did that. So another way is that we often evaluate our inclusion strategies. So building curriculum that's culturally relevant. We offer Spanish translations in our lessons, and then we also do surveys of our sites often to understand how much staff is needed, if certain program is being received well, and if we need to make adjustments.
So some of our next steps are to re-engage the youth ambassadors that were a part of this initiative, to create a committee that will then start having conversations and addressing the barriers that are continuously being uncovered through this process. We also have hopes to align the curriculum that will be at the Nature Center with school standards, as well as create pipelines for green jobs and increase the capacity for everyone doing this work through collaboration.
That is all.
So,
thank you.
Don't escape yet. Thanks, Jasmine. Thanks, Stephanie. Before we take questions, just want to remind everyone that to take a minute before you answer, I'm going to repeat the question so our friends online can hear. Do we have any questions for Jasmine and Stephanie? Yeah.
So for the survey that y'all did for kids, do you have plans to maybe do a survey again to see if there's been any changes in those responses?
So regarding the survey that you did for kids the first time, do you have any plans to resurvey or reassess to see if there have been any changes?
Absolutely. There were actually two parts to the survey. One of them was for people to actually get the activities down, but the other section asked a lot of questions about how they felt about nature and what barriers they experienced. So we are planning on doing another survey down the line to ask those same questions again, and hopefully we will see some improvement in people's comfort levels and opinions about nature.
Excellent. Anyone else? Maybe one more, if it's out there. All right. Thanks y'all so much.
Thank you.